Hello, welcome back to The Road to Episode 9, my ongoing series where I chart the road to the release of Star Wars Episode 9 in December 2019. And in this video I'll be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story. This will be my in-depth-ish spoiler review, so there'll be spoilers from the get-go if you don't want to know anything about the film. In terms of things that happen, I'm assuming you've seen the film if you're watching this video. I've also done a spoiler-free review just as a regular video, so if you want kind of my spoiler-free thoughts obviously, but also a little bit of background on me kind of anticipating the film. Long story short, wasn't too, again I've talked about this in the previous Road to Episode 9 video, so I guess I've talked about it, it's done. The anticipation was not really there for me. I was eager but not excited. So I sat down to watch the film today, went to the cinema, got a little bit excited when that Lucasfilm logo came up a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Then we get the text intro that kind of sets up a little bit of what's going on in the world that we're about to see in this film as far as the crime syndicate and things like that, and that we're starting by following the young Han Solo. And I loved how the title screen came up and stuff, and we kind of moved through it, and it kind of set the tone for something different, which is what I feel like this film brings to the Star Wars live action cinematic universe. I can't believe I just said the Star Wars cinematic universe. Someone punched me in the face. But yes, here's my thoughts on the film. The thoughts you've all been waiting for. What's that? Oh, you all weren't waiting for it. That's okay. Well, regardless, I think that a few people might be interested in what I have to say about the film and what I thought of it. And as I've said in the other video, if you haven't seen that, I loved Solo. Wasn't expecting it, went in with an open mind, which I think we could all do more of, and had such a blast with it. The first 10 minutes I just had a smile on my face. I thought, I'm actually loving this. I'm really enjoying it, from the way we see Corellia, Han Solo's homeworld, and how kind of grimy and beat down it is, and how dirty it is, and how he's this kid who has this relationship with this young girl Kira, and they both want to break free. We learn that she was a girl who kind of was given a second chance by this kind of, I guess, crime boss who lives in Corellia, this weird kind of alien creature. I thought the design of that was really cool, the kind of blue lighting in the room, and how everyone there is really under the thumb of the authorities, and then the oppression of the Empire is looming over on top of that as well. So you have these various levels of oppression, and Han and Kira are trying to break out of that, and you can tell they've been trying to do that for a long time. And I love how Han's dice came into it, which we see in The Last Jedi. It's really strange because in the original trilogy, we had the dice hanging above, the Millennium Falcon's cockpit. I don't think it is, if it's in the final film. I think it is actually in the shot when Chewbacca goes to sit inside the cockpit, the very first time you see it, and the dice are kind of jangling above his head. But we don't see him again in the original trilogy. And then in The Force Awakens there was a scene where Han comes back to the cockpit and hangs the dice up again, but they cut that out of the film. Whereas in The Last Jedi, with the dice are very much this kind of the symbolic element in the film, and they bring that back here as these kind of lucky dice that Han has always had, and he gives them to Kira. I love that connection and how she gives them back to him by the end of the film, and we see him hanging them up at the very end. Very cool. I enjoyed that a lot. There's a lot of great touches in the film, like the new Millennium Falcon, well, the new but old Millennium Falcon, where we see it in its more prime, pristine condition, where Lando Calrissian is kind of has it tailor-made to his, literally to his own taste. He has a cape room. We see the bedroom quarters for the first time. Things like that were cool, different touches to see. And I think we're all wondering, how can the Falcon look so different? How much can it weather? By the time we get to Star Wars, and it's so kind of grimy and run down that makes Luke Skywalker say, what a piece of junk. And you see in Solo that it takes 20 seconds really for this thing where they go through the Kessel Run, they go through the Maw, and the whole ship gets practically ripped apart. And I love that scene when they're on the beach, Han and Lando just looking at this wreck of the Millennium Falcon, and Lando's like, I hate you, and Han's like, I know. Lots of really cool stuff like that. Of course, this film was written by Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote the script for The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, along with his son John Kasdan, who co-wrote the script with him. So you have that witty dialogue from a great writer, and I'm assuming his son, must be a pretty good writer too, and is a chip off the old block. But the dialogue was really good in the film. There are a lot of jokes that don't land, they're kind of hit and miss, particularly with L3's character, who I think Phoebe Waller-Bridge did a really good job of becoming. She really gave that character something different. I liked that it was a a robot who's concerned with the well-being of other robots. The idea that this is a robot who's built herself from other robots, you know, and kind of has this weird kind of, I don't know, kind of collective hive mind in a way, to where, you know, towards the end when she kind of, you know, perishes, they take her chip and put it into the Falcon to get her navigational information so they can find their way out of the, you know, the mall. And then I think there's a line, I think, where Lando says she's part of the ship now, you know, and kind of a part of her essence that was so personal is now kind of a part of the Millennium Falcon's essence. I really like that. Just as an idea, I think it's kind of sweet. And even if I didn't like L3 as far as some of the humor was concerned, I think that her relationship with Lando, which we don't see that much, I think left enough of an impression that it was a character worthwhile being a part of the film. And it was good to see that side of Lando. Lando, played by Donald Glover, wasn't a big fan, felt patchy to me, and everyone's loving it. Everyone's saying he's perfect. He felt just like Lando Calrissian. To me, there's something about the voice. It felt like he was trying too hard in a few cases. Like I say, patchy. Some cases it really worked. Like at the cards table. That scene, actually, the kind of the first card game, the editing felt a bit choppy to me. Just, I get what they're going for, kind of a montage of showing the time passing throughout the game, but it just felt a little bit too incoherent. And this is where I say the editing is a little bit choppy, not that the film makes no sense, which is what people usually jump to when they notice that the editing is a little bit fast-paced or doesn't really make, you know, too much coherent sense within the context of the scene. Oh, it makes no sense is such an overreaction, but I did notice some editing was a little bit, you know, hit and miss at times, I have to say. And, you know, overall, you know, the film is not perfect. But like I said, I loved it. It had a sense of adventure, it had a sense of fun. This is one of the most fun Star Wars films, just in the sense that it isn't dragged down by the dread and weight of these kind of galaxy-at-stake stories, which I love, don't get me wrong. Last Jedi, incredible. Love that film so much, and I've talked about that at great length and in detail, and you can see those videos and even the commentary on the whole film if you want. But it was such a breath of fresh air to get something. And we had Rogue One, the first standalone Star Wars film from the main episodic saga, but that was so downbeat, and I enjoyed that. I loved how that made me feel. And this film didn't make me feel like that, but I liked that. You know, it made me feel a little bit nostalgic when we see Han and Chewie flying the Falcon for the first time, and they pipe in that music, which was awesome. When they're flying through the kind of the storm during the Kessel Run, and they're saying, oh, you can't make the Kessel Run in less than 20 parsecs, and you're like, ah, I know where this is going. But then they put in like the music from when the Falcon was escaping from the Death Star in the first Star Wars film, and then also the asteroid sequence from Empire Strikes Back. They used some of that music, and that just almost made me tear up a little bit, because it was just, again, tapping into that magic of those original movies, a magic that could never, you know, be replicated. And that's something I think people need to really hold on to and own as an idea. You're never going to get those original films back. The magic is never going to return like that. You have to embrace that these things are new, and that they're going to do things differently. And I felt like this film did enough differently that it was worthy of being a Star Wars film. You know, it's I think I don't know if I've already mentioned it in this video, because I've done two reviews at the same time, but the fact that this follows Han from the beginning to the very end, there's no cutting away to a separate storyline on another planet, another location. It's the only Star Wars film to do that, and that felt different and unique to me. It's not unique to most films, but as far as Star Wars is concerned, there's always these multiple threads running. This felt very singular, and I liked that. And it was breezy and light, maybe a little bit overlong, but I liked where it went, and I liked the locations, and a lot of the actors. I thought that Emilia Clarke was quite good as Kira. I liked her character and how it wasn't what you would expect from, you know, the maybe love interest for Han. It wasn't a case of, you know, you get to see them meet for the first time, fall in love. They're already kind of together when we first see them. But when they meet each other again, the dynamic is really changed. And I like how we never had from her character, like, oh, this is what I've been through. And they kind of talk about that. He's like, I want to know everything that's happened to you. And she's like, you'd never look at me the same way. And we never really get into that. It's left to our imaginations. And I really like that. I like that she didn't go off with him in the end, because that kind of just leaves things up in the air a little bit too much, you know. So I like the fact that she went off, but she had that kind of that last longing glance at him, and probably where she wanted to be, but knew she couldn't be because of what she got herself into. The big cameo, Darth Maul. That was cool, you know. I don't know where they're going with that. I know that a lot of fans of the Clone Wars cartoon and so on, you know, they've seen Darth Maul come back, and, you know, it's canon that he's still alive. He has these robotic legs and whatnot, but yeah, it was cool to see him, and to hear that kind of Duel of Fates kind of piped in just a little bit in the score. But I don't know, yeah, it was alright, you know, it certainly didn't, you know, rock my world or anything, but it was fun to see him, I suppose. And again, I'm just kind of rattling off stuff. I really loved Han and Chewie's first meeting. That was such a great scene. Loved it so much. And I loved all the Han and Chewie stuff. It felt so authentic and true to the characters. And again, I've forgotten if I've even talked about it, but Alden Ehrenreich. Holy shit. This guy was Han Solo, and I never expected it in a million years. From the trailers, wasn't convinced. I thought he was great. I really did. It felt like a lesser experienced version of Han. It felt like, you know, he had that the charm, he had kind of the cheekiness, the cockiness, but he was slightly less sure of himself than he is in the original trilogy. And we get to see his growth. You know, I see a lot of the big YouTubers like Jeremy Jones, Chris Doug, when they're like, well, this film doesn't tell us anything new about Han's character. This film is pointless. And it's like, you get to see why he becomes the way he becomes. You get to see why he becomes self-serving. You get to see why he kind of places himself first. Because he learns that from Beckett by the end of the film, that you really need to trust no one but yourself. And that's kind of something that he kind of, you know, grows out of a little bit in Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. But I love how we see that journey, because it's one of those things towards the end of the film, again, spoilers, where Beckett has got the gun, or he's about to pull his gun out on Han. And you can tell Beckett knows that Han isn't going to shoot him, he's not that kind of guy. And he's got his finger on the trigger. And then boom, he gets shot. And I'm thinking, wait, who shot him? It was Han. You know, he made that call, and Beckett was like, that was a good move. You know, you basically, I'm paraphrasing hugely here, but you know, you just killed me, but it's a good thing you did, because I was going to kill you too. You've learned that, you know, you've learned something there. So we get to see how he becomes that guy, and maybe there's always been an element of that to him, because he's always had to kind of fend for himself and kind of living on the streets and things. But we see him make that choice of, okay, I'm going to learn what I can from this guy. And you know, and I like the scene in the Dryden Voss's yacht, where they're kind of delivering the payload at the end of the film, and Han has kind of like doubly outsmarted them. I thought that was really cool. Loved how we had kind of a different kind of fight at the end, with Han with his gun and Dryden with his two kind of blades and things. It's really cool. I just really enjoyed the film, but most of all the Kessel Run sequence. That was stunning. That was such a great movie moment. In fact, everything from like the Kessel spice mines to, you know, the whole Kessel Run sequence, and when they finally got away, awesome. You know, and then there's all these echoes of things that we've seen before, like when Beckett injects the stuff into the Falcon to make it fly away, and they're like, yes! And then the Falcon's just like and just powers down, and they get sucked into the maw, and it's just like perfect kind of Millennium Falcon kind of you know, false hope, you know, like, you know, watch this, you know. I think he even says that at one point, watch this, I'm not sure. But then of course you know, the Falcon kind of like sonic booms out of there, and it's awesome. So I just loved the film. I really did. It's not on the, I was adding this film to my rankings of all the Star Wars films on Letterboxd, and it's down near the bottom. You know, it's not as powerful as Rogue One, which has a real punch to it. It doesn't have the, for me, the enjoyment of having the Jedi and the Sith and that kind of element of mysticism to the film. But I loved that it didn't. I loved that it kind of stood in its own 2 feet like that, and it was one of those, you know, what we see on the Death Star in the first Star Wars film, kind of breaking in somewhere, breaking out, using blasters, you know, outsmarting people, kind of having plans, but expanded to a whole film. That's what this film felt like to me. And I think we do learn something about Han, and I think that that's really cool. And I'm the first person to admit I wasn't expecting to be as on board with this film as I am, to the point where I'd love to see more. I'd love to see a couple more movies with these characters. And you know, even if, you know, I said that I thought that Donald Glover was a little bit patchy as Lando, I still enjoyed him, and it was fun to see a different side to Lando, where he's you know, he's more, you know, again, it's different when he's in Bespin on Empire Strikes Back, because you get the sense he's had a shadier history, but he's kind of lucked into this spot. So you get to see him kind of in card games and things like that, and acting a little bit more shady, but he still has that kind of flair, like the capes and everything. And there are other little things, little connections to the films that I thought were well done, you know, but not over the top. You know, it was just that bit where the Imperial officer was like, you know, I don't think I've even mentioned it. This is the bit I hated in the film, was when he's like, "What's your name, kid?" He's like, "Han, Han." You know, who are your people? It's like, I have no people. Okay, Han Solo, and it's just like, oh, brutal. And I felt like I needed to take a shower after that line. It was just so on the nose. Like, oh, so your name's Han, and you're on your own, eh? I guess you could say you're Han Solo. You know, and it's just, oh, so that's why he's called Han Solo. Yeah, never needed to know that. It never needed to be that explanation, and we didn't need an explanation in the first place. Hated that, but it's a minor thing, you know. And that's when I got worried, because I was like, oh, I'm loving the opening, and then they did that, and I was like, oh, this film's just going to be full of, like, you know, hey, look, kids, it's 3PO and R2-D2. I love that they weren't in the film. They didn't go to that, you know, kind of thing. So, and I liked the Enfys Nest kind of reveal towards the end. Lots of little things I liked about the film. What can I say? I'm sure I'll talk about it more, but this has kind of been my spoilery kind of discussion about the film. Looking forward to seeing it again. Might go see it one more time. Not keen to go see it loads and loads of times, but maybe in 4DX just to see the Castle Run sequence in 4DX. I think would be really cool. But yeah, what can I say? I have a lot of good things to say about the film. Has flaws for sure, but it was a hell of a. It was just a fun time. It felt very pulpy to me in the best possible way. You know, not unlike, oh, it's cheap and it's kind of, you know, like that, but just, you know, just kind of a fun, kind of punchy adventure that doesn't really have too much to say or doesn't move you in any special way, but it's a fun ride while it is. And that's what Star Wars was based off of, was those kind of cheesy kind of serials of the 1930s, and this felt like an extension of that. And I can't say enough good things about Alden Ehrenreich. I thought he nailed the character of Han in a way that made it his own without being an impression, but felt like it was the character. And I just really didn't expect it. For me, I give him top marks. I think he did a standout job. And it made me actually like Han even more. And similarly, just like my other Solo review, the memory card got full up before I could finish speaking. As I was saying, when I was a kid, people loved Han Solo. He was the favorite character of all my friends, and I was like, I like Luke more, you know. So it was always a thing of Han Solo being a much more beloved character to other people than he was to me. I do really, you know, like Han a lot, and you know, there's so many great moments from him in the 4 films that he was in, as played by Harrison Ford. But I just think that this really expanded the character a bit in a way that I really, really enjoyed, and specifically, again, the relationship with Chewbacca. Love that, you know. I love Chewie, and I loved seeing him kick ass in the film. It kind of choked me up a bit when he helped his fellow Wookiees on the Kessel Spice Mine, and he just did that kind of headbutt, you know, kind of goodbye to one of his fellow Wookiees. Just kind of a touching little moment there. Kind of, again, that's expanding the Wookiee culture in a way, and I just like that a lot too. So, what can I say? I think they did a great job, and I really enjoyed it. And if you think I'm just saying that because I'm a fan, then that's fine. But you know, that's the thing, you know. I really enjoyed it, and that there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not sure though. See, this is a case where the reaction isn't out yet. I don't know if people are going to love this film or hate it or be like, oh, I can't believe they did this, Disney killing Star Wars one step at a time. So, you know, this is just my honest, raw opinion of what I thought about it. Is there maybe some kind of, like, you know, first viewing kind of, you know, on a high kind of, you know, maybe overpraising it? Perhaps. But, you know, again, I'm not kind of saying this is, you know, one of the best Star Wars films. It's definitely down in the lower tier just because it doesn't have that added weight to it. But sometimes films don't need that. Sometimes films can just be breezy and fun and have stakes. Don't get me wrong, there are a couple of characters that die in the film. There are stakes, but overall, compared to the Star Wars films, it's much more lightweight, but in a way that I thought really worked for what the story was, which was just a kind of heist adventure caper movie. And I love the ending too, so yeah, it is what it is. I had such a great time with Solo. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on the film down below once you've seen it. I'm sure you have seen it if you're watching this far into the video. What did you think of it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.